Well, guys, you was all right when it comes to the EU's plans for the future. Many of us suspected and even expected the EU army to become a thing, with Remainers claiming it was never going to happen. Well, it turns out Brexiteers once again are bang on the money. It has been coming slowly but surely, not only in words from politicians like Guy Verhofstadt, but also in reality, because it would seem the EU now has its own dedicated Navy unit, which is called the Combined Border and Coast Guard Corps, which also made me laugh considering how much the EU loves open borders and clearly fails to stop any illegal immigration because a shitload of them end up here voting for Labour or grooming young girls. But this, I would say, is one of the first steps needed by the EU to create the full-on army we know they want to have, and let's be honest, they have admitted many times, despite the fact Nick Clegg and other snivelling shitweasels like him said it was bollocks. The only thing that we know as bollocks is everything politicians come out with, especially when they love the EU, but Breitbart picked up on this earlier, so we will take a quick look at that. It headlines from dangerous fantasy to reality in 7 years. EU reveals uniformed service. Like I said, the very start of an EU army, with their little piss-poor insignia of the European Union flag that deserves nothing more than to be pissed on if you ask me. It says less than 7 years after British Eurosceptics were laughed at for expressing concerns about a coming European Union army, the bloc has revealed the official uniform of its new standing corps, as the first of 10,000 recruits prepare to deploy to the field, and do absolutely nothing except help people immigrate to the European Union. I mean, we can't seriously expect them to actually stop illegal immigration, let's be honest there. They will be just like the border farce over here in the UK, picking them up halfway and ferrying them over with a nice little blanket and perhaps a bit of warm grub. It says Frontex, the European Union's combined border force and coast guard, revealed the new uniform in a social media post on Monday, showing off the Navy uniform complete with the EU flag, identification patches and military side cap. The force said for the first time the European Union has its own uniform service, the European Border and Coast Guard Standing Corps. Previously, officers seconded to Frontex from national forces denoted their new role by wearing an armband with a symbol of the European political project, a ring of gold stars on blue on their right arm. Obviously still wearing the uniforms that they should always be wearing. Their own national uniforms is all that a soldier should ever have on. It says the troops of Frontex in their own European uniforms comes less than 7 years after Brexiteers were told they believed the dangerous fantasy for saying the European Union was moving towards having its own armed forces, of which the paramilitary Frontex is the first phase. The so-called Standing Corps recruited its first inductees during 2019, who were sent to academies in Poland for training, according to reports at the time. The first Frontex Standing Corps officers are due to deploy in early 2021, so obviously over the next couple of weeks or months. While the first wave of recruitment expanded Frontex past 1,000 civilian troops wearing a European Union, by the EU's own reckoning, they intend to expand the force to 10,000 operational staff by 2027. So like I said, a proper military unit, 10,000 people is a fucking lot. Frontex Executive Director Fabrice Leggeri said in 2019 of the force that its officers would be armed and be able to deploy to an EU member state and exercise executive powers such as carrying out border controls, which is obviously extremely worrying to any EU nation and makes me think, thank fuck we are not a part of it. Though I can personally see a fair few EU nations not being very happy with this, and the public across the whole of the EU absolutely fucking hating it. How long before these forces are actually implementing martial law in European member states? I would suggest probably the very moment they have enough people to do it. It says here the European Union has long operated military forces and organised foreign deployments, although they have been comprised of military units on loan from member states working under EU command, rather than the new uniformed personnel in EU uniform and reporting directly to Brussels. EU NAVFOR's Operation Atlanta has seen EU warships and aircraft operating in the Indian Ocean continuously for 12 years, with participating personnel and ships wearing the EU's blue and gold flag. Because obviously they have nothing for themselves, which is why they're trying to make it now and have been for a few years. It says in other cases soldiers from EU member state armies have worn identifying patches with the EU flag and even blue cravats for ceremonial work. While the paramilitary police-style Frontex is the European Union's first uniformed armed service, it seems unlikely to be the last. European leaders frequently discuss the need for a combined European conventional armed forces, with EU Commission boss Ursula von der Leyen on her back, the former German Defence Secretary, before she went to Brussels, calling for credible military capabilities in 2020. Something many of us pointed out during the Brexit debate, and obviously the Remainers claimed was a load of bollocks. And as I said earlier, the only thing that was a load of bollocks was everything the Remainers came out with in relation to Brexit. It goes on, she said at Davos there is a European Union way to foreign policy and foreign security policy, where hard power is an important tool. In 2019, she boasted that Europe's army is already taking shape. Indeed, in 2019, the EU already had 47 joint defence projects underway, including a joint fleet of warships, electronic warfare systems, and airborne refuelling craft. Though like everyone already said, we knew this was happening, and so does many other. 47 joint defence projects really says it all. They are preparing a full-fledged EU army, that is beyond any doubt at this point. French President Emmanuel Macron hit a similar note in 2018 when he said the EU needed its own armed forces to protect ourselves from external threats. Incredibly, among the threats Macron listed was the United States of America, prompting President Donald Trump to call the claim very insulting. No, it's just Trump derangement syndrome. It's not even insulting, it's an embarrassment to the French people and Emmanuel Macron, the stupid cunt. Much the same way as Boris has embarrassed himself with his talk and his flip-flopping when it comes to President Trump, who he no longer supports and has got his nose firmly up Beijing Biden's arse. The article goes on though, the advancing state of European Union militarism is surprising, perhaps given the strong terms in which the claims that the plans were on the table were dismissed. No, it's not really surprising at all, or simply laughed off by pro-Brussels EU loyalists in the pre-Brexit vote era. And actually, during the Brexit vote and after it, they still continued this shit, claiming of course that the EU didn't want an army, despite many of them, as we've heard above, saying it already. It goes on, then Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg, one of the chief cheerleaders for the EU in Britain, and now a top Facebook executive after the unceremonious end of his political career, infamously belittled Nigel Farage on stage during the debate in 2014, accusing him of holding a dangerous fantasy when the Brexit leader cited a future EU army. At a 1-hour BBC debate on the future of Britain's membership of the European Union, Farage pointed out Mr Clegg's record on Europe, saying the whole point of the EU constitution, which you supported, was to make the European Union an economic and military superpower, and now you deny the fact that they are trying to build a European Air Force. Because obviously Nick Clegg is one of the greatest snivelling shitweasels this country has ever seen. He's gonna talk shit his entire way through life. No wonder Facebook have employed him. Clegg attempted to hit back with a line that would come to be repeated through the Brexit campaign as an example of the haughty disdain the Westminster elite held voters in, when he said, "No, no, no, it is a dangerous fantasy, it is just not true. I want to explain the truth and reality, not this fantasy world you keep talking about that simply doesn't exist." Now, while Clegg was subsequently proven wrong time and time again with following pronouncements from EU leaders on wanting an independent EU army, he still wanted the last word. An opinion piece in 2017, 3 years after the original debate, and after Britain had voted to leave the EU, the then former Deputy Prime Minister insisted he had been right all along, stating EU troops in starred fatigues not so much. Which obviously has now been proven to be a complete load of shit, but we all knew this fucking anyway. How many of you, I'd be interested to know, knew that this was going to happen long before it did? And I'm not even talking about when you've heard it in recent years. It's always going to be something that the EU wanted, let's be honest. That's what I've always thought anyway. But I would say once again, this is proving we were right to leave the EU. We certainly don't want to be any part of this. And as the article itself says, and many of you will know, it's only going to get worse. They will make more and more of these units until eventually they have a fully functioning army. That is, of course, if it doesn't get destroyed by then. We all know the EU is on borrowed time, so hopefully they don't even get this shit show to full strength. Let's hope we can get rid of the EU within the next 10 years. We just need a few fucking states to leave it as quick as possible, which could actually happen. Italy, Netherlands, even France is getting some Euroscepticism growing. This can only be a good thing.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.